get going. Okay. Again, we might still give it. No, stuff it. We'll start, and as usual, any latecomers will try and catch up or whatever. So, thank you, all of you. Oh, that's a point. I better just make sure sound. I'm pretty certain everyone can hear me. One sec. Right. Anyone not hear me? Although you can't hear me because I'm talking, but I've just typed that. So hopefully everybody has sound, just to make sure the tech works. Okay, no one's saying they can't. Okay, let's see how we are going. Okay, the counter is running. Okay, I think we're ready to roll. Okay, thank you everyone for coming along to this special Witchfest 2015 talk that I did yesterday at the real life one in Croydon. I'm pretty well shattered. I barely slept for the last 48 hours, and I'm about to repeat yesterday. Now, yesterday was reasonably well received from what I can gather. Not sure how different this one's going to go, as they shall all be different. But topic is Sigil Magic. Oh, I've got some slides I need to throw over to you. Okay, hang on, I've not really got that prepared now, have I? That's a bit stupid. Inventory. Okay, here we go. What I will do... Okay, well, let's just share. I might share all the slides because that will just keep me a little bit less messing. Or nearby. I will give you the numbers of the ones we need as we go. Right, you'll probably want to start with the first one. Or better still, just switch to the second one. The first one is just the opening title one. So, the first one. Actually, I better get it because I've still got the full version stuck over there by the sofa in its wrapper. Okay, so slide 2. Oh, and sorry that they are not rotated, because they looked like they were rotated when I uploaded them, but they weren't, and it didn't rotate them. Anyway, don't worry, there's not a lot of text on most of these, so you should be able to grasp it. Now, let's kick off with an intro, because it also helps, especially for those that are listening on the recording that have no idea who I am. So, welcome back, Jen. So, I'm Kev, and I'm Kia. I follow work with Egyptian deities primarily, and I also work with some chaos magic principles, because, well, it's fun and I'm geeky, and I have a science background. It's a very... I've covered this a few times, but that's the gist of where I'm coming from. So we're going to go through a number of sigil things, and depending on time, well, if everyone wants to hang around, you can. We will go to the bitter end, and there's some strange stuff we're going to look at. Anyway, it sort of follows on roughly from the talk I did for the Real Life Witchfest last year, which was on cyberpaganism and chaos magic, and that sent me off on some very bizarre journeys over the past year, which I will come to as we go. Now, back to the slides. Slide 2, forget slide 1, it's just the title page, as I said. Slide 2, the Rosy Cross. Now, first glance, especially for those who know about the Rosy Cross, anybody here know about the Rosy Cross? No one's... Oh, someone's typing. No, okay, knows. Fair enough. Right, well, if you were to be familiar with the Rosy Cross, the first thing you'd spot straight away is that they are not Hebrew characters on the Rosy Cross that I've drawn there. They are Latin characters. Now, a number of reasons for that. The first one I've just mentioned earlier was that I follow, or I keep saying follow, I don't follow, I work with Egyptian deities and magic, so Hebrew characters really don't cross over or apply in my particular case. Also, I didn't really want to insult anybody by drawing them badly, so I have done them as the Latin characters. Now, the red lines, that is the familiar way to draw these, work with this particular style of sigil generation. Now, I say sigil, it's this kind of work on the Rosy Cross is more of seal generation. A seal is a sigilized form of a name, and generally it's angelic form, demonic form, or whatever, because they're sort of the Hebrew characters. And each concentric circle has, if they were using the Hebrew characters, they have magical and significance at each petal location and ring banding outwards. But of course I don't use those, so I use the Latin form characters, and this particular drawing I copied from, surprisingly, I actually did some research for this talk, which is highly unusual for me. I did a raid of one of my favourite bookshops in London, which is Treadwell's, and I found a number of useful, actually I found a number of books, which is not surprising, it's a bookshop, but I found a number of books on sigils and stuff, and I just almost bought most of the shop if I could have done it. Now, this particular one is called Sigil Ciphers and Scripts by M.B. Jackson. Now, it's got a lot of lovely different stuff in there to look at, but it also had the Rosy Cross. Now, as soon as I saw what was in there, and it was this and the Hebrew version, and I recognised the sigil that was being drawn. In this case it isn't that, because the sigil in this slide you have is actually my goddess's name, an Egyptian goddess called Salket, but obviously in that case it's Serket is what I've written there. Now, generally with these is that you start with a circle, draw a straight line to each of the characters, double in the characters, you just do a bump, a loop or whatever, and then at the ending one you do a straight across 90-degree line to end it, so you know where the start and end is. But as I was saying, the particular image that came up was a complete copy of one that I know extremely well from one of my most favourite authors, Konstantinos, in the book of his called Summoning Spirits, The Art of Magical Evocation, and it has quite a good detailed description of how to use the Rosy Cross in the Hebrew form. Again, I don't use that, so it was a bit pointless. But as no one did say that here they use it, so, and again, like last night when I asked this question, nobody's was willing to give up any admittance that they know about the Rosy Cross. So we shall move swiftly on, unless of course anybody wants to discuss its use further. We want to go, no one's making any sound. Okay, well, we'll go to the next slide. because that's the more interesting one. Now, slide 3. AOS, possibly what most people are familiar with as far as sigil work. Austin Osman Spare. It would be really bad of me to say he was some crazy bohemian artist of the late 1800s, but he was pretty off the wall. Developed a particular way of creating his magic, which was sigil work. So the general gist, which seems to have survived for the last century or more, has been pretty well adapted by everybody for their use. And that is, you create an intent, you create preferably a positive affirmation attempt, no negatives, no wishy-washy stuff. It is a very affirmative thing. Write it out for as long as you need it, but hey, with its intent you need to keep it concise, so it needs to be well-rounded, well-defined, and escape-proof. So you take that sentence, whatever language it is you're using, you chop out all the duplicate letters, keeping just one of them, but I don't think he used removal of vowels, but I do, and in some cases I have actually seen mention that he did remove vowels, but whatever. My preference is to remove vowels, mainly because there's two things there. There's one that, with my Egyptian kind of tradition of the Egyptian language that we understand, had no vowels or any kind of formulation of those vowel sounds, so I removed them. And of course, as you can see from that slide, the intent I had written on there of energy to get through the day was quite a reference to the actual Witchfest event. It's an extremely tiring day, and usually I'm on at the end of the day. So this was at 5 PM, my talk yesterday, and we'd already been going since, well, it was at 10 o'clock, and we still had another, several hours of partying to get through. So I think people were quite, now it did give a bit of a chuckle. So as you can see, when I removed the vowels and the duplicate letters, the letter N, R, G, Y without the vowels is a phonetic spelling, so it's enough to keep enough value in. Now, once you have the definition reduced down to its component part of individual characters, you then get a bit creative. Sigil generation is a creative, imaginative process, which for me is why I use it. I think most of you here has probably encountered me in some way, but just for the record, and because obviously I'm recording this, so I've got no idea who's going to be listening to it. So I work primarily as altered state, lucid dream, astral magic kind of stuff. So imagination is extremely important to how I function, how I perform ritual work, how I engage with my deities. It's important. I've always been a creative person, an imaginative daydreamer, and so it's been a useful thing, a useful tool to help me formulate a magical intent and enact it. So with sigils being a creative thing, this is where you can be as creative or as not as you feel. Now at the bottom of that slide, I've got, starting from the left side, a progression in effect. It's not particularly brilliant, I probably wouldn't have done it that way, but it was just to show how things could be created. So on the left, I've taken the letters and arranged them, and if you're familiar with bind runes, where you can match similar lines together to create a compound bind rune, it's that kind of effect, really. So I've sort of tried to highlight in different colours the various letters to show how I've joined them together. So you start off with that, and then you just mush it up as much as possible to abstract it down to a really into a form that is as unidentifiable or traceable back to the original as possible. Now, could ask why. I've not really deeply read Spare's book of pleasure, which is where most of his detail on this comes from, and there's probably a few other books as well I know of his. But from my experiences and my preference now, the actual intent part is when you are creating that intent and you are doing the initial reduction. With like any kind of a magical process, the creation of the intent and embedding it into whatever it is you're doing. If you're doing a kitchen witch and you're making a piece of bread that's going to be used as an offering and you're putting your intent in it, that act of creating the intent in your head and doing a physical action embeds the intent with it. Now, as far as sigils go, the initial intent, the initial creation of the first sort of stage is where all the magic really kicks in. Further reduction, depending on how I would say it's debatable whether further reduction has a huge effect, but reducing it and reducing it and reducing it, yeah, it just gets it further into your mind and so on, and for when you release it. Now, people are being very quiet now. Either you're listening very well. If you do have any burning questions to ask, as always with any of my stuff, just stop me and we can just quickly discuss the points, because if you wait towards the end you may have forgot, and I may have forgot what I was talking about. So yes, listening and learning, cool. I had a well attentive group last night. Okay, yep, and I lose. Oh yes, so you're laughing. Hopefully you're just not laughing at me. Not that I'm insecure or anything. Anyway, yeah, okay, fair enough. Well, we'll get back to the talk, shall we? So yes, so you have this creation of the sigil. You then got this sort of mushed up, strange doodle of some kind. Then what else do you do? Well, Spare's technique was to make use of ecstatic gnosis. That is a intense release, emotional release of intense emotional release to carry that sigil image, however briefly in the mind, with it outwards. Now, I say outwards, I got some serious a few surface thoughts popped in yesterday on this one. Now, Spare's approach to the gnosis and the release went along the lines of very strong emotions such as anger, hate, love, sexual release, drug or alcohol induced kind of release. Now, those don't sort of sit well with me and my approach. in my early days of in the early 90s. Now this is going back a long time. Early 90s when I sort of started to explore these kind of areas. I found it was the rave culture times and the nightclubs, and alright, no worries, if you've got to run, take a note, hang on, I'm just going to stick my website there. That's houseofkia.co.uk. It'll be posted on there as a recording at some point in the next few days. So it's okay. That was one of the questions I had. Well, no, not cool. Yeah. Why do we create? How do we create sigils? Yes, that's a really good question. Why do we do any of this? For me, as I said earlier, I work with a non-physical form. So for me, I don't generally have a hole full of ceremonial stuff. I'm not. Originally, I was sort of ceremonial to some extent, but over the years, I've distilled my need for these physical things, and everything is through visualization and through astral kind of work. So for me, it's more of a convenience. I can quickly doodle something, just quickly jot down a sketch, and that's my sigil for whatever intent I have at that time. Now, I don't even have to physically create that shape. It can just be an expressed image in my mind that I have an association with something. For example, if I was to have the need right now for protection against a vicious dog that was approaching me, I could easily just leave and run away. But if I was to take a magical approach, I could create an image that represents repelling of this animal, and then, because at that point I probably have a heightened state of need, I could then use that to empower and project out the sigil. Now, I also, it's been a long time since I've done this class here, but a part of my visualization ones, I do a session on amulets. Again, luckily for me, Egyptians were great with their amulets. They got so many, but some of them are not applicable or easily usable within a visualized form. So this particular class that I ran there was on how to create a visualized amulet for reuse. Now, this sort of becomes an interesting aspect of sigil work. According to Spare, the whole point of the release of the sigil's image at a heightened point of gnosis is that you then forget about it and it's never then thought of again. Now, that's lovely, got no problem with that, but if I have a particular sigil that I really like for doing a particular intent, I'm going to probably reuse it a few times, although technically I suppose I should really change it for each use. But if it's the same intent distilled enough, then it's going to get reused. So effectively there I have a sigilized amulet, which case it's visualized, projected, and then not completely forgotten because I'm going to use it again. So for me, I create sigils because they're convenient. I don't have to have a need for, say, if I'm out, say, again, with this an oncoming dog that's going to possibly attack, I don't have to say, stay there a minute, dog, I need to pop home and do a ritual to protect myself from you. I can work wherever instantly that I need something, because what's the point of having to wait for some astronomical alignment to occur to do a ritual? I don't personally see that as a requirement. It's the icing on the cake, fine, but for me, I need my magic to work all the time wherever I am. So sigils and this kind of form where it's minimal requirements is convenient, and as we shall see later on, highly effective in my case at least. So back to your question then, why do we create them? For me, as I said, personal. If you have another need, there were some other options as well. Something I popped up with yesterday, and I probably also didn't mention a few other things as well. I also create them as a part of my routine, also for any other opportunity, like if I'm, say, decorating and I want to throw a sigil or say protection on that wall, then I slap it on the paint with a paint that I'm going to colour it with, let it dry slightly, got the sigil, it's there, I see the shape, I then paint over it, finish the wall off. It's then hidden, forgotten, but the sigil's there empowered. Or I might leave some sigil for protection on a window pane because it's got dusty or something. Thing is, good thing about sigils is that for any person's sigil, it could be another person's doodle or something's brushed against it. They are very I just forget the word now, innocuous in some way. People don't notice. For example, you could have a pile of post-its. Crikey, I actually said that right. I really struggled with those two words yesterday. A pile of post-its next to you on your desk, and you just doodle a sigil. Your boss you're not happy with because they've just given you a kicking, or you're a bit concerned with something you're doing. Just scribble an empowerment sigil on that post-it. Either stick it on your monitor so it's there as an amulet form, or you just cast it there and then roll it up and throw it away. And if anyone sees you doing it, then they think you're just probably doodling or scribbling with a pen to see if it works. So it's quite a subversive, innocuous approach, and I like that because I like to combine my daily routine with my magic. Again, this comes back to the fact that I do most of my stuff through visualization and astral work, where I don't have that many physical ritual things to tie my practices down. So if everything's in my head, then I forget things real bad. So I tend to try and keep things going by involving them as my daily routine. One that I always pull up, and I've also got to remove this confusion because the next slide's going to get this. I don't use it as often now. I think I've actually had to change it because the kids have worked it out. The unlock diagram on my phone used to be my travel rune, and it is sort of my travel rune now, but originally it was the rune, the rad rune, the Northern Futhark rad rune. So that would be my unlock for the car, for the phone. Now, when I usually get in the car, I stick my phone in the dock, use the key thingy to unlock it. Therefore, I'm casting my travel rune to give me safe journey, and that's killing those two things at the same time. So yeah, it sort of just works for me. So it's obviously always down to others how they work. So anyone else sort of doing sigil work, because I saw one of you was saying you use sigils quite a bit. Is it because you want to include it in your daily routine, or is it because it's convenient, or is it something altogether to the side of your normal practice? Is there anybody typing? Oh yes, there is. Okay, I didn't quite see that because it went up the screen. Okay, let's just give you a moment. So yeah, so in a roundabout way, Dorcas, did that actually okay, in addition, okay, fine, so it's a sort of a special occasion kind of thing. Yes, okay, yeah. So yeah, okay, so I'm weird, I do it all the time. Okay, so Dorcas, was that in any way sort of answering the question or not? But anyway, now what mediums as well? Okay, I've mentioned using paint on the wall, I've mentioned using a pen or something doodling, but I also use all sorts of other stuff. I came up with a really mad one yesterday, which I had to write down, and that was actually making pretzels, sigil pretzels, which could be quite fun. So I'm going to have to do that, and cool, thank you. Yeah, I'm going to have to do some sort of breadstick kind of stuff with sigils. That could be really cool. Also, then someone afterwards mentioned about using rope, and that's possible. Anything that you can use to leave a trail, so bit of wax, clay, anything. It's not totally required that you have to use a pen or pencil or something, but generally it is a two-dimensional kind of thing. So it's a really useful. Now, if we flip to the net, let's see if there's actually just got to just check my notes, because there's a lot of notes I didn't use yesterday. Again, because as those who know me who talk, I've lost. It's possibly is slide 4. Unfortunately, the images aren't loading on the laptop, and I could actually, if I really let me try, actually get the real. It's still in its bag from yesterday because I haven't had a chance to get it out, but it could well be 4. It's the one that says Northern Runes. That'll be the next one. So that could well be 4. I'm sort of losing track of counting. Excellent. See, it's burnt into my head. I've been staring at it for the last few weeks. Okay, so now these are the Northern Runes, the Fourth Arc. Now, not technically sigils, but I wanted to draw the attention to them because there are some similarities, and I've already mentioned one, the Bind Rune, and the creation of the AOS sigils, and some similarities there. Now, they, and again, also I've mentioned using the Rad rune for this kind of thing. And I can't remember my notes. I've only got one line on that, and I can't remember what I said yesterday. So we'll skip that because the next rune, the next slide 5, is a crucial one. Now, it's I think Jen and maybe Lily were. Oh, actually, even Athena might have been there too when this came up. The title is called My Runes, which is crossed out and then has sigils in front of it, over it or beside it. Now, that's for 2 reasons, maybe. We'll see if I can count. The first reason, and I recently got into trouble in the local press when I seem to have confused a few people about what I mean by saying I use runes and then I use sigils and then I draw this rune. Now, I use the word rune as to mean a divination form of this, whatever symbolism is involved. So I tend to use rune if I'm using, say, the Order of Fulthark as a divination system. Bind rune is a magical use. Okay. Okay. Someone's what is? Oh, okay. Someone's saying I don't think I'm online. Okay. Yes, I am. Okay. Where was I? Oh, yes. So, the bind rune is we got incoming people. Okay. 1 second. Let's just sort these ones out. Hello, hello. That's alright. Okay. We are about halfway through. Can you hear me okay? Aqua? Alright, okay. Happy birthday. Excellent, okay. Right. Find a place. I'll give you the slides. Let me just sort out giving you the slides, just so that you know what it is I'm actually talking about. Okay. 1 sec, folks. Let's just sort out this, just so that we got someone who's not going to get utterly confused. Thank you, Dorcas, for saying that. I was going to say we are on slide 5. Okay. Oh, was that someone else? Okay, I can't. Okay, anyway. Right, okay, yeah, we're on slide 5. Now, where was I? Oh, yes. So, runes, I would say, is divination. Sigils is a magical use. Now, people will completely disagree with me but that's just how I use those words. So, now, as I was saying, a couple of you, 2 or 3 of you may recall a few, at least maybe 2 years ago, at one of the classes I did here, we was discussing sigils, and actually it was one of the amulet sessions I did here, and someone asked about creating your own divination system, and I said yes. And so I went about creating one, and here we go, and I did this yesterday, so forgive hearing this, although I shouldn't really, because, you know, this is the way it goes. I have a small divination booklet out. Wolfenhow Press, it's brilliant, obviously, it's lovely, it has all this stuff in it too. So I created this divination system, using a series of psychological techniques of word association. The general gist is compile a list of needs or kind of things you'd inquire about, do some flashcards with them, do some doodling, take the doodles, strongest shape, make it as a sigil, that is, or sigil rune, or whatever you want to use this word for, and that is the symbol that you put on a piece of wood or a stone or whatever. You won't. You have fallen into my trap. Now, as I said, those shapes you will not recognise because they are from my subconscious of association of certain concepts. Now, let me get the one of the. I'm going to definitely have to have the pictures up with the slides. One sec, because they're just not loading for me in Second Life, so I'm going to have to get the originals, and then I can talk you through the shapes that I see. Slide 5. Right, so now, as I said, the shapes I created through word association. Now, for some shapes I had no problem associating a concept with them because of a variety of different factors. Some I had a struggle with, and I'm not going to reveal those ones because I'll need a psychotherapist for that one. Now, these shapes you see in front of you. Now, okay, I need to try and, let's say there's 4 horizontal lines. We got 3 at the bottom, 3 in the middle, 4, and then some curvy, slightly bumpy one at the top. Let's go by that, shall we? Just so that you can understand what I explain. Now, for some concepts, for example, I needed something that represented the ground and the earth. Now, I have an engineering and electronics background. For some years I was an electrician. So for me, when I associated instantly, and when you use like word association techniques, it's very quick response kind of thing. So what I did was instantly associated the shape, the international symbol for Earth, and that's on the 4th row, 3rd row from the top, in the middle, the horizontal line with 4 45-degree slashes, the symbol for the Earth, electrical Earth. So that's my association. Now, another one I wanted was for wisdom and guidance. Now, instantly, the association was pretty easy. And that came from influence of my Egyptian path. So, 2nd row, 2nd from the right, the hieroglyph for feather, the feather of truth, of Mart, of justice and wisdom and blah blah blah. So, some things were very easy, but then we got some more stranger abstract shapes going on here. So let's do them in sequence then, so we're not jumping around. So the very top one, which is the slight curve to the left at the top, underneath the Y of the title. Now, that represents food, and in a way you could say that's a sort of a abstract full tummy. Then next row, the far left, which someone said yesterday when they saw it, they thought it looked like sperm, actually was ethereal, the spirit world. I think possibly that has, I think the influence there is sort of like the astral cord, that if you do, well, if you're supposed to see it, I've never seen it, but there's supposed to be this astral tether that you get when you're travelling. So that was the, I think, the imagery there. The next one of the 2 bumps, that's hills, travel. That is my travel rune. So for, obviously, for travel rune for divination, and travel sigil for active use. Then of course the next one is the feather, and the 2 that look like lollipop sticks, lollipops. Now that is my association for close family. Now, you could get concerned, and I haven't really considered it until yesterday when I looked at it and spoke it out loud, that it looks like stick figures that have no arms and legs. Got a few laughs there. I don't have a problem with my family, so it's just it's less lines. It just gets too busy if there's too many lines. So then next line down, we got 3 circles with 3 lines. Well, that's business relationships, specifically business. Then we've done the earth, and the one that looks like the sun, that's actually the light bulb moment, the creative force, a creative eureka moment. So bottom row, the far left one, well, straight away you'll get that when I say it's the male force. It took, I think yesterday it did take a little while to work that one out, but no one's doing lol, so I assume you might be struggling. Never mind. So then the second one is daytime, that's the rays of the sun, and the right hand one is female energy. So these all sort of work as a divination system for me, and luckily, by sheer chance, I had some in the audience yesterday that I had already done divination for, and when I said I find them highly useful and I've got good results with them, without having to bribe people, they said yes, they agreed it was a highly effective method of divination, which was lovely. I wouldn't say if anybody else was to use these symbols they would have the same effect, because this is tied to my psyche, so you need to really do your own. But as far as divination, and that's a whole completely different thing, buy my booklet. I need to do that as a subliminal sound on this track, I think. Buy my booklet. For more details, coming soon. So we'll park that. Now, for sigil use, I then, after about a year or so of using these, I then thought, let's see if we can use them for, as I used with the bind runes, and that is to use them for active magic, so as sigils. And these fulfill a sigil role quite nicely, because they are an act of my creation. They are my imagination, however strange that may be. And so it sort of felt, I'm ticking some of the boxes here, and this could be quite fun. Yes, I say fun, it certainly wasn't. Now, let's move to the next slide, slide 6, because this is where it went a little pear-shaped. Now, there's 3 symbols there. Now, we will talk about the middle one. Now, one that is a compound, like a compound rune, compound bind rune, and again I use the same thing here. Now, the 2 little lumps at the bottom you've already seen on the previous slide, that's travel. The sort of curve and then straight line, which has got some breaks in it, is another shape, and that is a nasty one. Now, the fact that there's a few breaks in there is something I've done on purpose. It's an Egyptian kind of technique to someone's twigged it straight away. Yes, it's a nasty one. Did I say nasty? I can't remember, it's a few seconds ago. It's a nasty one. I've broken the power effectiveness of that shape by damaging it. It's used a lot in Egyptian kind of things. Egyptian hieroglyphs are on their own a purely magical thing, so to reduce their effectiveness you damage them. Likewise, if names were important to Egyptians, so if you were to rub out damage someone's written name, you cause them damage. It's a really quite useful technique. So now I will tell you about this experience, and it was the first use I had of these sigils in a magical role. One day I was driving to work, and a car overtook me and a few others and was driving really dangerously, and I thought, they're gonna really kill someone or themselves. I want to sort of get them off the road for a little while. I was sort of preparing contemplating a quick throw of some compound bind runes, but I thought, no, let's use mine for a change and see if this is a good opportunity to try. So quickly I thought, right, what can I do? Okay, I would use I want to do travel disruption, take them off the road. So I thought, okay, my travel related one, the 2 heals, and I would use my nasty one, which is sort of more of a spite kind of thing. It was probably a very bad thing to do anyway. You know, I don't like throwing sort of badness at things and at people, but I know the intent was that it would be, oh, I don't know, road rage kicked in. So I threw this at them, obviously without the broken bits, and I thought, first time, that didn't feel right. Now I should have stopped, because I've had these experiences before, but no, I repeated it, and it threw it, and great, and the car was eventually gone in the distance. So didn't think anything else of it. Got to work, no problem. Then I had to do one of my night classes that I teach, so after work, so got to there, did that all lovely, was leaving there to go home, and this was like 9 o'clock or whatever at night, and my car was feeling very odd. Every time I put my foot down on the accelerator, it barely moved. Now I had to drive on a really busy dual carriageway, sort of motorway speeds, to get home for about 15 miles, and I could only get up to about 30, and it took straight away, and then it took a long time to get the speed up, momentum up, and I was really concerned I was going to probably end up having an accident. It wasn't great. Now it was at that point I started to realise something, that this could be no coincidence. I don't believe in coincidences. This is the result of something, and the fact that I threw this sigil out that morning, affecting traffic, and I thought, okay, perhaps because these are so tied to my psyche, that instead of them being externalized, they are internalized, and that I've actually cast them on myself. This, and I didn't actually get a chance to mention this at the talk last night, the final outcome of this was that when I took it to the garage, because I was fearing serious damage to the car, accelerator cable break or something worse, but actually it was a very tiny piece of pebble was stuck behind the accelerator, stopping it being depressed. Now my runes that I use for divination are stone. I use pebbles from the beach that I spent my childhood on. So the fact that they were pebbles and they were related, and it's sort of thinking, okay, and I could feel my goddess saying, you know, I've given you a warning, you don't do this again, you naughty boy. So I stopped doing, well, I'm now a little bit more careful, and I only use, say, those two either side. The left hand side is sort of good health kind of thing. The right hand side is the hieroglyph for my goddess, it's a scorpion. So I tend to use more positive, useful things than trying to be, well, for any other kind of external use of these sigils. So they've been quite interesting. So, right, okay, we are getting on in time. Oh, what's this? What have you... What's those numbers you typed in? Aqua. Oh, just magic. Okay, you lost me, but that's not hard. Anyway, right, next slide. Now, this is where we get a little bit. Now, actually, do I even continue? Because this is going out onto. No. Okay, what I'm going to probably do. Yes, actually, I'm having second thoughts now. Right. Bear with me, everybody here on Second Life. Now, this is for you who are listening. There's another few slides that I presented at the Real Life Witchfest that I'm not going to continue with here, mainly because this gets rather complex and could be deeply misunderstood if out of context. Now, and for those here, Second Life 2, if you hear this, will get a gist of it. Effectively, and the summary is, and of course we're also running out of time for anybody who needs to be somewhere. My chaos practice requires, not requires, but it is let's think. It encourages being proving of that the magic is working, to be analytical. So I have done experiments with sigils to bring about results and to analyze those results. Now the gist is that for me, sigil magic involving weather is extremely effective. Sigil magic involving travel is okay, because my analysis results of this suggest that weather is a very expansive chaos system, many variables, therefore manipulation of these variables is a lot easier due to the quantity. Even though that sounds a little bit counterintuitive, it's a very useful thing to manipulate. Whereas travel, the probabilities are reduced somewhat. Okay, it's still a fairly chaotic system, but it's a narrower. Now, at the talk last night, someone asked about doing the lottery. Now, there, as a chaos system, there is a finite probability of winning. Therefore, if you can definitely put a number on it, you've got a serious constraint. And if it's a pretty large number, I know, but it's still a numbered, identifiable set of events, probabilities. So that I have stopped using to some extent, because that requires more sophistication to reduce the effect, the manipulation of the probabilities to bring about my objectives, i.e. to win something. So these next few slides, which I'm not going to talk about in the recording, is about those results. Now, those of you who are listening to this, who want to explore these techniques, then you obviously know who I am and where I can be found. Come and talk to me. So for the moment, those here on Second Life, stay put. I'm just going to do a quick wrap up, and we may talk about them should we feel the need to. So again, thanks for coming. My website is at well, you've obviously found it. Don't need to find it. But if you have any questions at any time on any of this stuff, feel free to bother me, and I'm always happy to find. Thanks for listening.